Okay, so today I'm going to tie one of my favorite flies. It is a BK modified disco shrimp. So essentially the modified is it was originally a Chicone's disco shrimp. The thing I found with that is that there was a lot of foam and the fly just sat flat on top of the water, which was fine, but I wanted something that sat a little bit more ass down so that when you popped it, it acted more like a regular popper and it had a lot more action than the disco shrimp, which was more like almost like a gurgler, just kind of sloshed. The thing that makes it the disco is the little sequin that's in the front, or sequins, whatever they're called. You can buy them at Hobby Lobby. You can get them anywhere. They come in different sizes. You know, the sequins that you're like on a lady's dress or something like that. They come in different sizes, different colors. For this size, this one that I'm going to tie is going to be for smaller bass and brim. I also tie it sized up for redfish and trout. And when I do, I tie it on a bigger hook and I use the larger sequin. For this one, like I said, I'm going to tie it for smaller bass and brim. This is the hook I'm going to use today. I do like the stinger hooks because it has a little bit larger of a gap. And I find that when you have the sequin on there, it's important to have a gap between the hook point and the actual sequin, because since it does hang down. And so when I do size them up for larger fish, for redfish, I'll use a larger stinger hook. So so the thing to do with these is obviously we're going to take these sequins, we're going to slide them up the hook. Important to put, I usually use two because one of them just can get a little bit flimsy and bend, so I'll put two of them together, and I run them cup to the front, put those on the hook first. Essentially I'm going to just poke those through the holes in the sequin and slide it up to the front, and there it is. So it's going to be in there. Hopefully it's on good, tight, nice and loose. So the beauty about this fly is that it's, aside from it sitting, let me see if I can't fix the vise, straighten that out for you, is that it's a fun tie. It's really inexpensive, it's really durable, and most of all, it catches a shit ton of fish. Again, I use it in salt water, I use it in fresh water, I size it up and down depending. So the first thing I do is I'll put a little bit of thread on there. You can wrap it to the back, it doesn't really matter at this point. I'm gonna cut that off. Now to make it a little bit more durable, what I typically do is I'll take a little bit of super glue, I'll put it right behind the sequins, up on the front. Some of it squeezes through the little hole and attaches the two of them together, but essentially what I'll do is I'll take my thread, wind it up to the front, put my fingers behind it, make a little bit of a thread ball behind the sequin so they can't go anywhere. You can kind of angle it forward as well. Doesn't really matter. Most of it gets covered up anyhow, but we just want those to stay in place. At this point I'm going to advance the thread to the back a little bit. Get a decent thread base. Doesn't really matter what it looks like. As for thread, doesn't really matter what kind of thread you use. I just use like a utility sewing thread. Call me a hack. So next we'll do is next I tie on a tail. The tail of choice has been for these small ones. I've had this piece of foxtail I bought, geez, must be 10 years ago in Jacksonville at a place that is no longer in business. It's that long ago. But this has lasted me that long. Take a small clump. I don't hear people say pencil size. I'm not sure what that is, but yeah, about that much. I take out the underfur. You don't need all that extra weight. It does get covered up, and I'll clip some of it off. You'll see in a second. Now you can probably use anything. I've used bucktail. I've used marabou. I've used synthetics, and they work just as fine. So essentially just going to tie that in as a tail. The length really doesn't matter. It's just your choice, your preference. Like I said, we're going to cut this glob off. Doesn't matter what it looks like. It's going to get covered. Just to make everything a little bit more durable, I'll wrap under a couple times and over. And you saw I added a little bit of super glue first. At this point, I'll add a little bit of flash if I can see some laying around the desk somewhere. I've also added rubber legs to these before if I wanted to have some sort of rubber legs. Geez, this is a little piece of flash I could find. Where's a piece of flash when you need it? I don't want to go over to my bag. Alright, so this is, excuse me. Flash. You know what, since I don't have any flash laying around, I have some of this Ferrar blend. I'll just put a piece of that on the back. That'll be fine. Like I said, it's not going to win any awards for being pretty, and most of this gets covered up anyhow. I'll just fold it over. Length doesn't matter. You can play with it. That's the beauty of it. Like I said, the original Chacone's Disco Shrimp was fancy with legs and eyes and all that stuff. I found that it really didn't matter for what I was doing. Okay, so there you at this point it's relatively simple. You got the sequin up front. You got some flash. Now's the part where you can put the legs in if you wanted to have some rubber legs. If not, that's fine. Because now comes the foam. So the sheet foam is what I use. Go to Hobby Lobby, Joann's, Michael's, and get the sheet foam. It's so much cheaper than buying the little packs. Comes in all sorts of colors. It's like for 8.5 by 11, 50 cents or something. It's ridiculous. You can get colors. You can get some that are sticky. I'll just cut off a small square. Show you in a sec. Ow! Stab myself. And this is something that you'll have to just kind of play with till you get it right. But what I find is it's about the length of the shank, maybe a little bit longer for the first time through. And then what I'll do at this point is I'll fold it over in half. Okay, and I'll cut it from a point in the back to make it kind of like a triangle or something like that. But then I also angle the front piece so that when you unfold it, this is what you have. And I'll come in and kind of round that front part off so that it's not coming to a point. You'll see why in a second. Okay? Because essentially what we're going to do is we want to take this and fold it over the sequin. Okay? So it's cupped. Okay, so what it's going to look like is, okay, so it's kind of a hood. We're going to fold it. It's going to be like that over the sequin. The sequin is what's going to give it and form that shape. Okay, so at this point, what I like to do is I'll kind of put it on there, say, it's a little bit too long, it's a little bit too short, or it's a little bit too wide. And this one actually looks pretty good. I'll get it to kind of where I want it. And what I do is I do like a loose wrap, but I kind of pull down a little bit so that it'll leave a little bit of an indentation on the foam. Okay, so you know where that's going to be. I'll come in, drop a little bit of super glue, kind of where you want that tie to be in. We're not going to glue on the front at this point. We're just going to glue on just this back. Kind of get it where you want. I leave it so that the foam hangs over the sequin just a little bit. I'm going to do like a loose wrap at first. And that's about it. You'll see that it kind of leaves a little pinched part. Okay, sometimes you can leave that on. Obviously, if you have a little bit more foam, it'll sit a little bit higher in the back. I like to have it sit down a little bit. So what I do is I'll come in and cut this off, and you'll see in a second. Leaves a little bit more of a diamond space, but even more than that, what I'll do is I'll come in and just wrap over that. Don't want all that extra stuff, and you'll see, and I'll make it pretty in a minute. Okay, so essentially that's what you're going to have. Okay, there it is from underneath. Okay, the next step is I'm going to come in and cover all that up, and you can cover it up with anything you want. You can cover it up with, you know, a couple wraps of a Staz. You could cover it up with chenille. You can cover it up with anything, but I'm just going to use some of this dubbing that I have. Nothing pretty, and again, now you could come in, and if you wanted to, you could add the rubber legs. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put on a little bit of dubbing. Okay, at this point I'm going to advance the thread to underneath the foam. Okay, there it is. You can pick some of this out. There you go. And again, you could put a Staz or anything on the underside of this. You could put, you know, some sort of long, crazy leg chenille stuff. You wrap that around, it'll hang down. But I already have the dubbing out, so I'm going to use a little bit more of this dubbing. And again, you'll notice that we don't have the front foam clip down yet, which is fine. So I'm just going to kind of wrap this around. I'm going to leave a little bit on there, because what I'm going to do now is, pick it out a little bit, is I'm going to put that foam back down, and I'm going to press down just a little bit on top of that sequin. And what it's going to do is it's going to form a line on the underside of the foam. Okay, a slight line. So that'll be an indication of where you need to put your super glue. Okay, so I'll put a little bit of super glue right there at on that line. All right, and the next part is you get your bobbin and your line set back, not all the way from the sequin, but set it back just a hair, because what we're going to do is we're going to fold this down and we're going to wrap over, and we don't want it to be so close to the front that it just misses. Okay, and you don't want to be too far back, because you want it to be able to press down and form that that sort of thing around the sequin, the arch around the sequin. And at this point, you're pretty much done. Just kind of a whip finish. You could add legs at this point also. I've done legs here, I've done legs at the back, I've done legs mid-body. So here's the just a quick whip finish. And you'll find that, you know, I'm just using these for brim and bass. They're pretty durable. I haven't had any issues, so I'm just going to do a light whip finish. Sometimes I'll come in with a dab of super glue or something, or a dab of head cement or something like that. And essentially, that's the end of the fly. And you can you'll have a bit of a cup face, okay, and it sits down in the water, and it'll just, it's a great fly. Again, I like the gap, the stingers, because it has a larger gap between here, and so what you have is you have enough space right here, because the sequin tends to hang down a little bit, and you need to have enough of a gap. So you can either buy a longer shank hook, or you can buy one that's a little bit deeper. So at this point, I'll come in and I'll you know, pick some of this out, pick some of the underside out, so that it, you know, kind of can look like legs underneath. But these things, they pop great. They're a great fun tie. So you can made a couple of them in pretty short order. And again, you can size them up, you can size them down. For whatever fish you're targeting, you can make them any color you want. You could put eyes on the side of them. I've done that before. You can hit them with markers and do them black if you want it black and you don't have any black foam. You know, that's really easy to do. So a fabulous tie, a fun tie. I suggest you go out and do it. So the BK modified disco shrimp. Tie 'em up.